1 to 600 people a day in this country are dying from cancer. 600,000 a year are dying from cancer. And it goes up and up and up every single year. So you think these experts know what they're talking about. If they did, why is this happening? Just like Otto Warburg said, 80% of cancers can be prevented. Obesity has now replaced smoking as one of the top risk factors in getting cancer. Dr. Thomas Seyfried isn't just another cancer researcher, he's a trailblazer, challenging the core belief of modern oncology. While mainstream medicine treats cancer as a genetic disease caused by mutations, Dr. Seyfried argues that cancer is actually a metabolic disorder rooted in damaged mitochondria, the cell's energy factories. His radical idea: cancer doesn't begin with bad genes. It begins with broken metabolism. In this video, we break down a powerful yet often misunderstood idea that cancer is not primarily a genetic disease, but a metabolic one. Based on the groundbreaking work of Dr. Thomas Seyfried, we'll explain in clear, bite-sized segments how cancer really begins, not with mutated genes, but with damaged energy metabolism in the cell. What really causes cancer? You'll learn what fuels cancer cells to grow and what you can do to interrupt that process. We'll also cover practical strategies for managing and preventing cancer, including what foods to eat, which ones to avoid, and how to create an internal environment that starves cancer cells while supporting healthy ones. The origin of cancer. Cancer originates from mitochondrial dysfunction. Cancer is not a genetic disease. Once the field comes to realize this is a mitochondrial metabolic disease of energy metabolism, we will drop the death rate by more than 50% in 5 years. No question about it. What does Dr. Seyfried mean when he says cancer is a mitochondrial metabolic disease of energy metabolism? Let's first understand mitochondria. The mitochondria is actually another type of organism. It's another organism with its own DNA that lives inside the cell. It makes the energy so that the cell can do its normal functions. So if it's a liver cell, it will do liver cell stuff. Maintaining blood glucose is maintaining metabolic homeostasis. If it's in the neuron of the brain, it maintains electrical signaling capacity. So every one of the cells in our body has a particular function in the society of cells, and the energy that's used for all of this is the mitochondria. And the energy comes from us breathing oxygen. So every breath of oxygen that we take into our body serves as an acceptor of mitochondrial electrons to allow that organelle to produce ATP, which is the chemical energy. It's the chemical energy. This mitochondria allows the cell to remain quiescent in a differentiated state. In other words, a state doing what it's supposed to do to maintain metabolic homeostasis so that all of our organs, brain, liver, function, all work together because of the energy metabolism, because we're all breathing. So when that organelle gets corrupted in any particular way, in any particular cell, the cell either outright dies if the energy there is restricted to such a great extent, or in the case of cancer, it's a chronic interruption of energy from that organelle, the mitochondria. Chronic acute disruption will kill the cell, but chronic disruption will allow the cell to slowly adapt to an alternative form of energy, which we call fermentation energy, which is energy without oxygen. And over years, months or years or decades, some of these cells gradually adapt to this other form of energy because the mitochondria have become chronically incapable of providing energy. The mitochondria also control the quiescent state, and what happens is they slowly lose grip on the energy within the cell. This fermentation takes over, and cells begin to divide, dysregulated division, division out of cell division, out of control, which is the definition of cancer. The definition of cancer is cell division out of control, ultimate result is a tumor. Where did the tumor come from? It came from a gradual disruption of energy metabolism from mitochondria, leading to dysregulated cell growth. What Dr. Seyfried explains can feel a bit complex at first, so here's a simpler summary of why he believes cancer is a mitochondrial metabolic disease. Dr. Thomas Seyfried argues that cancer doesn't begin with faulty genes. Instead, it starts with damaged mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside our cells that produce energy. When these mitochondria stop working properly, the cell can no longer generate energy the normal way through oxidative phosphorylation. As a result, it switches to a backup process called fermentation, even when oxygen is available. This strange behavior is known as the Warburg effect, and it's a key feature of cancer cells. This idea actually dates back nearly 100 years to Otto Warburg, a Nobel Prize-winning scientist who discovered that cancer cells rely on sugar fermentation instead of using oxygen, unlike healthy cells. While Warburg's theory was largely forgotten in favour of the genetic mutation model, Dr. Seyfried is reviving and expanding it. He believes that the genetic mutations often seen in cancer are not the cause, but a result of mitochondrial damage. In other words, broken metabolism comes first, the mutations come later. This changes the entire way we understand cancer, and it opens the door to new strategies focused on targeting how cancer cells make energy rather than just trying to fix their DNA. What causes damage to mitochondria? Dr. Seyfried points to several key factors that can disrupt their function: exposure to chemical carcinogens, intermittent hypoxia, exposure to radiation, old age, viral infections, hepatitis, papillomaviruses, rare inherited germline mutations that disrupt mitochondrial function. Any of these are called secondary risk factors, a whole variety of things in the environment that can cause a disrupted energy metabolism in a cell, thereby leading to mitochondrial disruption and dysregulated cell growth. And the only cause for the disruption, cell growth, is damage to the oxidative phosphorylation capacity in the mitochondria. That is the origin of cancer. So there's one common origin: disruption of oxidative phosphorylation leading to fermentation. So all cancers, regardless of their organ, are highly fermentative cells, dysregulated in their growth, driven by two fermentable fuels, which is the sugar glucose and the amino acid glutamine. They are the two major fuels that we have found driving all cancers. It's extremely difficult to get cancer in any cell where the mitochondria in that cell are healthy. So healthy mitochondria prevent cancer. So the question is, how do you maintain healthy mitochondria? Cancer cells are different from normal cells in one major way. They crave sugar, glucose, and glutamine. These two nutrients act as their main fuel sources, allowing them to grow rapidly, divide uncontrollably, and avoid death. Unlike healthy cells, cancer cells rely heavily on these fuels because of their damaged mitochondria and broken energy systems. That's why Dr. Thomas Seyfried promotes therapies that aim to cut off this fuel supply. His approach includes the ketogenic diet, high-fat, low-carb, caloric restriction, and intermittent fasting, all designed to lower blood sugar and reduce access to glutamine by starving cancer cells of what they need most while allowing healthy cells to adapt and thrive. These strategies offer a powerful, non-toxic way to manage the disease. Foods to protect against cancer. The foods of our ancestors were very low in carbohydrates, putting us in nutritional ketosis. And that's why cancer in Aboriginal folks that still are on the planet, cancer is almost unknown, unheard of in these Aboriginal tribes of people who live according to their traditional ways, which was no high carbohydrate foods, a lot of exercise, mitochondria maintained in a super energy state, and cancer does not exist. And yet, Cancer in our Western society is replacing heart disease as the #1 killer. So now we should focus. How to prevent cancer is obviously cancer is being caused by our Western diet and lifestyle. So that's what's causing cancer. So what is it in our Western diet and lifestyle that's allowing our mitochondria to become damaged, leading to dysregulated cell growth? And there's a whole range of things. Minimal exercise, massive amounts of highly processed carbohydrate foods in our diet. Stress, mental stress of the kinds of jobs that we're doing. So you put all that together and we put ourselves at risk not only for cancer, but cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's disease, macular degeneration. You can go down the whole list of chronic diseases, and you can start to see a dramatic increase in all kinds of inflammatory chronic diseases as the result of our diet and lifestyle. The genetics has very little to do with this. As a matter of fact, our genes protect us. They do the best job they can at trying to protect us from all this stuff. But we overwhelm the protective capacity of our body by putting ourselves into these very risky kinds of conditions. Now that we understand the importance of avoiding processed foods, especially refined carbohydrates that spike blood sugar, let's take a closer look at what Dr. Thomas Seyfried recommends to protect the body from chronic diseases like cancer. At the heart of his approach is a powerful idea: starve cancer cells of their main fuel sources, glucose and glutamine, while nourishing and protecting healthy cells. How to starve cancer cells. To do this, Dr. Seyfried promotes several metabolic strategies that work together to shift the body into a state that cancer cells find hard to survive in. One of the main strategies is the ketogenic diet, which is high in healthy fats and very low in carbohydrates. This forces the body to burn fat for energy instead of sugar, putting it into a state called ketosis. Healthy cells can adapt to this state easily, but cancer cells, which rely heavily on sugar, struggle to survive. On a ketogenic diet, the focus is on healthy fats, moderate protein, and very low carbohydrates. Great fat sources include olive oil, coconut oil, avocados, grass-fed butter, and MCT oil. For protein, stick to pasture-raised eggs, grass-fed meats, wild-caught fish, and organic poultry, but in moderate amounts to avoid excess protein conversion to sugar. Load up on non-starchy vegetables like spinach, broccoli, cauliflower, zucchini, and leafy greens. Nuts and seeds such as walnuts, chia seeds, and flax seeds are good in small amounts. While fruit is limited, a handful of low-sugar berries or avocados can be included. These foods help keep you in ketosis, reduce inflammation, and support healthy cell metabolism. However, if you are carbs and fruit lovers, Dr. Seyfried recommends going for complex carbs or low-sugar fruits such as these. Some carbs are okay, complex carbohydrates that you can get from some vegetables. Not all carbs are bad carbs. You know, highly processed carbs are not good. But we have complex carbohydrates that you can get from some vegetables and things like this, which are, in fact, very healthy for the body. And some fruits as well, like what we found for vitamin C was grapefruits. Grapefruit was there's another thing too, low glycemic foods. Foods that release glucose very, very slowly into the bloodstream, rather than like white rice, potatoes, pasta, all this stuff. This will give you high shot glucose in the blood. But grapefruit was low glycemic. If you look at the types of foods that you want to try to say, well, I want some carbs, but I want low glycemic carbs, then you can go. There's a whole list of foods on the web that will tell you their glycemic index, and the glycemic index will allow you to take in those foods without spiking glucose and thereby not creating a major shift in your GKI values. He also recommends caloric restriction, which means reducing overall calorie intake. This helps lower metabolic stress, improve mitochondrial function, and reduce the energy supply that fuels cancer growth. In addition, practices like intermittent fasting or even water-only fasting give the body regular breaks from food. Water-only fasting, it always works really well to maintain nutritional ketosis, low GKI values, low insulin values. Guy Tannenbaum is on the web talking about this. Guy was diagnosed with advanced prostate cancer, high hypertension, high blood pressure, and type 2 diabetes, and he did water-only fasting metabolic therapy. Prostate cancer went into total remission. Type 2 diabetes went away. Hypertension, high blood pressure, everything went away. Metabolic therapy will get rid of a lot of things besides your cancer.